Welcome to the Chosen Companion series. We are here back with you guys for episode 5. My name is Mike from Showboys, and I am joined, as always, with my good friend James from the nerdybible.com. So, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing great. Just ready for another fantastic week of podcasting.
Yeah. Geez. I feel like, it's like every night I have something podcast related going on. It's really fun. But I don't know what happened that made it so busy. like, uh, I don't know. It's just I feel like there's something every night with Showboys. I wouldn't have it any other way because it's a lot of fun to do, and I'm glad you're having fun
I am.
doing this.
This is my first series, so I'm
Yeah,
excited.
and we were both just talking about how we thought last week, episode 4, was a really fun episode to do, and I just like last week was really fun, and I think you might have been able to tell during the episode, but like I was having revelations in real time as we were talking about the things we were talking about, so it was really fun, and
That's the point,
really
right?
made me think, and I hope that it was able to make any of you listeners out there think about the things we're talking about, because like you just said, that's the whole point. So man, how was your week? It's been a week, huh?
Yeah, it's hard because this is always on a Monday, so it's like, how's your week? Well, let's get into it now. If you're referring to last week, it's been great. Just enjoyed a weekend. Tried to do some fall things, and
Nice. It
it's
is that time of year.
It is, but I mean, what do you do when you have a 3-month-old? You
Yeah.
push her around in a
Yeah, exactly.
stroller, and so. But yeah, no, it's good, man. How was your week?
Look at all the pumpkins. You're never gonna remember this. Yeah, no, I get it.
No, we actually went to one, and they were like $28, please, and we looked at each other, and we're like, no.
Yeah, she shouldn't count.
No, we just left because we're like, what are we gonna do? Put my 3-month-old on a pony? Like,
right? Yeah. Well, come on, let's go on the hayride. Hold on tight.
Yeah.
No, it was a good weekend. This was a weekend. Once in the last, I don't know, maybe month and a half, maybe pushing 2 months, where we like didn't have any plans, and so we just kind of like hung out around the house. And like Saturday, we cleaned up like the first half of the day, and I have three kids under the age of 7, so by Saturday evening it was a complete disaster again. And then Sunday we just kind of hung out. It was nice. It was a much needed weekend at home, because I
Good.
like podcasting. My life in general has just been extremely busy, and I have no idea why. Just like, I'm telling you, it's so weird. It's like every weekend, all summer long, there was a birthday party.
Yeah, that seems
every single weekend. It's like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't hit that yet. But well, I mean, I feel like there's a lot in summer. I don't know. Maybe there's some reason for that. I'm sure you can do the math, but
yeah, I'm not sure what that reason would be.
But yeah, it just I haven't hit the point where my weekends are full of birthdays, so hopefully we don't get there, because I like my weekends.
Yep, enjoy them while they exist. So we'll just we'll jump right in. We're back here, episode 5. This one's called The Wedding Gift, and it was a really good one. This one, here's the synopsis. In Jerusalem, 8 AD, Mary and Joseph find the missing 12-year-old Jesus teaching in the temple. In Cana, 26 AD, Mary helps her friend prepare for her son's wedding. Nicodemus interrogates the detained John the Baptizer concerning signs and wonders. Thomas and his business partner, Rama, prepare wine for the wedding. Jesus and his students make their way to the wedding while John the Baptizer explains his ministry and Jesus' ministry to Nicodemus. During the wedding, Thaddeus and little James share how Jesus called them. Thomas and Rama worry as the wine runs low. Mary immediately asks her son to intervene on behalf of the bridegroom's family, recalling finding young Jesus in the temple, and tells the servants to do everything Jesus says. Jesus instructs them to fill the jars with water, and they obey, yet Thomas expresses doubts. Jesus prays his readiness to the Father, turning the water into wine. When the wine is served, the master of the banquet exclaims that it is the best he has ever tasted. Thomas and Rama accept the invitation to join and meet Jesus in Samaria in 12 days. So, yes, we're back here with Jesus. We're kind of picking up right where episode 4 left off. Simon, the beginning, well, before Simon, the very beginning of the episode, it's a little flashback. Like I said here, we're back in 8 AD, where Mary is running around downtown Jerusalem, worried sick because she lost her son. And when she finds Jesus, her husband Joseph is with Jesus. And I thought this was really interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but it's the same actor who played Joseph from the pilot, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, he looks so familiar. I love that. But yeah, so it turns out Jesus had been missing for, does it say in the description? No. He was missing for like, was it days or like a day or like a very, very long time? Like more than just like 30 minutes or an hour?
Yeah, he was it's a total, so it's in Luke 2. This is like the one story you get of like young Jesus that's not like infant Jesus. I don't know, I'm just trying to classify it. But it says for after 3 days they found him in the temple sitting in the midst of teachers. So I'm assuming that's from the point at which they left, realized he wasn't there, went back.
The classic. I feel like, Mary, are we forgetting something? Like, something doesn't. You said you had Jesus,
which is so like it's such a crazy idea, because I mean, it's literally like, I mean, I'm assuming much of what they have is like they're riding by donkey and or what, you know. I mean, that's a big oversight. I mean, I guess if you're like riding with a giant caravan or something, but like,
she did say something about a caravan, but still, like, after everything that happened surrounding the conception and birth of this child, wouldn't
you had
you
one
think?
job.
Yeah, wouldn't you think like his I don't know, well-being is of utmost importance? Like, a little irresponsible there, Mary and Joseph.
But then you got to think too, like, what other, he had brothers.
That's true.
So like, who else was, and why didn't they speak up? Maybe they're not young. I don't know. I'm
It's
assuming
like
Jesus is.
it's just like you know, Home Alone. Jesus edition.
We forgot him again.
Yeah, but unlike Kevin, he's not watching movies and eating ice cream for breakfast. Jesus, he is found in the temple, and at least in the show, he is in the temple amongst the teachers and rabbis, and Joseph says he was actually teaching, which of course took Mary by surprise. But the big importance of this scene in the episode, at least, is you know, Mary is like worried, and she's like, I forget exactly what she says. Doesn't she say something like it's not your time, or it's not yet your time? I forget exactly how it's worded, but basically Mary's like, Yo,
I think that's
it's not time yet. And Jesus replies, if not now, when? Right?
is that one?
It definitely happens at the beginning of the episode. I just forget the exact wording of those two phrases because there's a callback to that at the very end of the episode. Pretty sure it is.
Yeah,
If not now, when?
I'm looking it up now. But in scripture, it says, she's like, "Why have you treated us like this? We've been looking everywhere for you, you know." And that's when he's like, "Didn't you? Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I'd be in my father's house?" And that's they actually. It seems like they stayed true to his what he says,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It's too early for all this. Okay. All right. So she says it's too early for all and then this like very like just like like I know this is coming. I know one day, but like not now, dude.
Yeah.
You know, like and he's like, if not now, when? You know, so
Yeah.
I think they actually did pretty good with that, without like straying too far from.
Yeah.
I that's actually pretty funny. I didn't really pick up on like her doing that. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. Great. They, like we've said this whole time, they just do a really great job of like humanizing this story.
mhm.
Um, because yeah, that's I feel like that's what a parent would say. Like it's too early for this
Yeah,
whole thing. Like
this,
I
yeah,
just yeah, you're like 12, dude. Like
uh-huh.
go on, give me a
Oh,
break. Or what is he? 8? I don't know. I
yeah,
forget.
that 8, that yes,
Oh
8.
yes, 8. Um so yeah,
Oh,
so
no, 12.
oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
12 it is. Um so that's kind of like the cold open of the episode here. And then we get into the episode. Simon is returning from the miracle here from the end of episode 3. He's coming back home, and oh shoot, what's his wife's name? Why can I never remember her name? Um, he comes back home and he tries to explain to his wife what just happened, and I love this because, like, how do you explain that? How do you explain, first off, a miracle just in its own right, but like that specific one where just fish are literally jumping out of the water into your boat, like by the bucketful. Um, but he's sitting here trying to explain the impossible, explain this miracle that just like most literally saved his family from their massive debt to the Romans, and then proceeds to tell her that not only did this happen, but the person that did this is the Messiah, the one that they've been praying for their whole lives. Um, the Lamb of God, the one who will forgive the earth of its sins, uh, and like if you didn't believe the miracle, if you didn't believe that, here's a third one for you. He called me to follow him. I hope you're not mad. And she, she reacts. She turns away. She's crying, and he thinks she's upset or mad. And she's like, "Why would I be mad? Like, this is awesome. Like, you need to go." Um, which I thought was pretty cool. But it I wonder, like, if you were in his wife's shoes, like, how would you have taken that whole conversation? And I wonder what, like, made it so easy for her to just be like, "Yeah, go." Maybe it's just because I have, like, a skeptical mind. I
Yeah.
would have been like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
You're going away with who?
yeah, who's
You
it?
know,
Some
like,
random bearded dude? Threw some fish in your boat and you're just gonna leave?
I thought about this. I don't know. Were you asking me at that time? You done? Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So I think about myself, and so like when I get like super jacked about something, like I'm super excited, I just get all like rambly how he is. It's very similar to it. And I was like watching, I was like, man, that's just like me when I'm excited. I'm like, and there's these fish, and then they hit the boat and it's like, and you're just this what's the word? Just eccentric.
yeah.
Is that the right word? Yeah. Um, and so I think for her, I'm looking at it because I've always wondered this too. I'm like, what do you mean they said follow me and then they just left their families? And like, but that's the
Yeah,
reality of it. Like that
yeah,
is the literal reality of like of the disciples leaving. And I think sometimes we downside like we just
like,
don't put
gloss
enough.
over
Yeah,
that
we
whole
do. We
fact.
gloss over the fact that like they're leaving their families. For instance, um, spoiler alert, Matthew's going to get called in a future episode. I mean, that's the first book of the New Testament. I don't think I'm stretching too far on that.
I can't believe you!
But like,
Proceeds to flip desk.
he has a dog. Where's the dog go?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's quite like you get these questions, and that's not scripture. I don't think you find the dog in scripture, but the reality is like they're leaving something, and so her reaction, I think, though, too, if you look at how skeptical of a person he is and how like just I mean when Andrew first told him about it, he's like, dude, stop.
Yeah.
Like this, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think for her to see him like this, like and there's also a difference to him. Like he is happier and more like full of life than he has ever been portrayed in this show. So I think there's a level of like you asked how sorry, this is a long way to get there, but you asked how she believed. I think it's just like or how she would react to it. What was your initial question?
Yeah, pretty much like, how is it so easy for her to
Yeah.
just be like,
Oh,
"Oh,
that's what
yeah,
it is. I think
you're
she
totally
just
right, get out of here."
she just truly believes. Like there's a
Yeah.
belief there that's lacks any doubt. And I think that's why. And I mean maybe
Yeah.
that's what we're portraying in her. Like there's no doubt in her mind that this person is which is weird because that means she trusts her husband like fully. Because me, I'm like, I'm gonna be like, all right, well, you know what? Let me read into this a little bit more too. Before, it's like
Yeah.
anything. I mean, just to picture any decision you make as a family, you're like, yeah, let me think about this for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has to start with her having the devotion and, like, faith that she has in
Mhm.
her belief structure of, you know, their, I can't really call it Christianity because it wasn't that yet, right? But her, like, belief in the scriptures and of the coming Messiah, um, like, she was solid. And just like you said, seeing where Simon was when we met him in this series, very jaded and uh, like run down, right?
Mhm.
Skeptical, not, very self-reliant, not reliant on God and in the way that they were, their family was. And then seeing him come back, explain what happened, and this like renewed passion for their beliefs. Um, yeah, I think you're right. She just noticed like that complete 180
Mhm.
degree turn from where he was and how he is now. And like what he is telling her is aligning with what she believes, right?
Mhm.
So I think that makes it easy for her to be like, well, I mean, why wouldn't you go follow the Messiah if he called you to follow him? You silly goose. Get out of here.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah.
Like it it's so quick to and one thing that I think in these moments I look at the show, for example, and I don't know how factual this is, but like there always seem to be talking about the Messiah. And I know that that's like I don't know. I'm trying to understand the actual culture because it's why can't I Malachi, right? Is that the last? Why am I having? But yeah, I think it's Malachi. So I think it's like 400 years. That was the last book of the what you would call the Old Testament or the First Testament, but it's Malachi. And then there's like these 400 years of like just silence. And it's like they're always seem to be talking about the Messiah in here. Maybe it's just because it's a show about Jesus and that's like their creative liberty, but like they just always seem ready. And that have you noticed that in the show? Like they're always like, it's cool. He's about to be here. It's here.
Yeah.
He's on his way and he's gonna come. And so
That
I
is a
don't
good
know.
point because, like, yeah, in that 400 years, like, God's not speaking through the prophets anymore. Like, why are they so ready? You know, like it's been 400 years.
Maybe. I mean, I think also. I guess maybe like. I mean, I think they have a perception of time at this point. There's a calendar. I mean, I don't think it's as maybe I mean, the Julian calendar, but that's no, that would have been no, that's not formed yet. All right. So either way, like I wonder if they understand that, like, because the Egyptian, the Exodus, that was 400 years.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if they know. I wonder if they have a perception of that. I don't know. Maybe that's just like I might have to do some digging on my own here, but like it's something that I'm just
Look
now
out
like
for a new
kind of
blog post on the
yeah.
Nerdy Bible deck.
No, but like they're just always mentioning, and maybe that's just the show, and maybe that's just what they
Yeah.
do, and so, but it's just something
Yeah.
I noticed.
No, it's a valid question. Valid thing to think about, that's for sure. But yeah, so he leaves to go follow Jesus. And then let's just follow because there's a lot of jumping around in the episode between the wedding stuff and the Jesus arc and the Nicodemus John the Baptizer arc. I believe those are the only two things jumping around, right?
Yeah,
I count like the new students and Jesus traveling to the wedding preparations, and then Nicodemus and John, right?
yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so since we're talking about Simon, let's just talk about the journey to the wedding and the wedding itself. So do you want to kind of guide us through the traveling to the wedding and the little group of young disciples?
Yeah, I mean they're. I mean it's pretty. I think it's a pretty straightforward scene. They're leaving, and it shows Simon and Andrew like they're walking to a bus stop, and they got their, they
Got
got
their
their
little backpacks,
little
lunch
bags.
boxes.
Yeah, and there were. I think it's there's this like. I think they did a good job of giving this like excitement of like. I think they think there's this going to be this like instant um like change to things, like they're about to watch Jesus like flip everything in the next like few days, you know what I mean? So they're
Mhm.
kind of like the way they're walking, I don't know, I don't think they understand how long of a process this is, so it's kind of cool to see that, especially that like they're all going to be well, so a lot of them martyred, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of things that's going to happen in the future that like they just don't understand, and here they are walking with their backpacks. That's what I think of
Yeah.
when I see this scene.
Yeah, it's
um
very like first day of schoolish,
yeah,
like
it is
a giddy
exactly.
excitement.
Uh-huh.
I
And
love
they're
the
all
conversation that Simon and Andrew are having though, where they're like they don't want to make a bad first impression and they don't
yeah.
want to like look like dorks, and they're like, I wonder if anyone else packed their lunch or like
Yeah.
like what are they gonna think if we're the only ones that
Yeah.
show up with our
Uh-huh.
lunch? And
I'm not nervous, you're nervous, I'm not.
yeah,
They're going
yeah.
back and forth.
I love it. And Simon is there to kind of like level out Andrew which is funny because Simon kind of needs leveled out most times. But he's just like, we're not gonna, we're not gonna get things right, maybe, and that's okay. Because like he used the example of when they learned how to fish, like,
Uh-huh.
how did our father teach us how to fish? And Andrew's like, he didn't. He's like, that's right. We sat and we watched, and then when it was our turn, we tried, and we failed, and we learned, and that's how. And I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting um, little tidbit from Simon. But yeah, they're there to tag along and watch and
Mhm.
and learn from Jesus, and then as we see, spoiler alert, when he's gone, they then proceed to continue and use the things that they learned, which is pretty cool. But yeah, so that's going on, and simultaneously we have Thomas and Rama who are preparing the feast and the wine and all of that fun stuff for the wedding celebration. As you know, that's their business. I believe Rama's father is the owner of the vineyard, um, and this is Thomas's job to uh, basically cater these wedding parties. And we see right off the bat the kind of personality that Thomas has, where he's very very attentive to
Analytical.
detail. Yeah, exactly. I was trying to figure out the appropriate word. He's very analytic. He's very counts his P's and Q's, make sure all of his ducks are in a row. And we see a funny I made a joke with my wife because she is very much like Rama in this scene, and I'm very much like Thomas, where it's like, three jugs of wine. Are we sure that's going to be enough? Shouldn't we bring a fourth? And Rama's like, no, man, we're fine. We'll be fine. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they weren't fine. They should have brought the fourth. But it was just a good introduction of the personality there of Thomas. And yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, it's a good contrast with them. It shows they're. Wait, are they married? Or no?
not
Okay.
in. I mean, I don't know if
Okay,
they
I don't know.
ever were at some point, but in this episode, at this point, no.
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 Yeah, so I was thinking too. I don't even think. I don't. I don't know. I don't see anywhere that said this might be a creative liberty that that Thomas was one of the servants. I think I think it's a creative liberty. Just see, I don't know if you picked up on that, but you find the miracle of Cana in John, which they introduced John being one of the people that is on the trip with them.
Oh yeah,
Just
let's
to,
go
yep.
over the disciple or the traveling group with Jesus. We have
Yes.
Simon, we have Andrew,
Uh-huh.
we have Mary,
Mary, James, John, Thaddeus, and
James.
and James.
Big James, little James.
Yeah, Big James, Little James. And I think it was this episode that really made me understand how confused I am of like who is actually who. And like, so that is on my my to-do list, is to figure out where I went wrong.
Yeah, for some reason I thought that little James was Thaddeus, but he's not. He's little James. And Thaddeus is the stone cutter, right? That uh, has a nice little conversation with Mary at the wedding celebration about apprenticing with the stonemason.
Yes.
That was a really good conversation. But yeah, so Thomas and Rama, they head off towards the wedding. Meanwhile, Mary is Jesus's mother. Mary is had traveled to the wedding party early to help her friend kind of set up because her friend's son is getting married. Hence the invitation for Jesus. And we kind of see like a little bit of a class difference here. Mary's friends, family, they're probably middle-ish class, maybe lower end of middle class, and then their son's wife's family is kind of more upper class. Her father's like a very successful trader, and Mary's friend's family here is trying to do what they can to kind of live up to the standards of the future in-laws to impress them. And I don't know how like accurate this is to Jewish society back in the day, but like it's kind of a big deal in this episode that the celebration go off without a hitch, that it's like pretty rad. And because if it's not, it's kind of humiliating to the family who's throwing it, right? So
yeah, no, I actually just went to a Jewish wedding.
oh, did you?
I did. So it was, I mean, I don't know, it wasn't an ancient Jewish wedding clearly, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was a lot of there's obviously a difference, right? Like I think they did multiple days in ancient, like I think it was like I should have done my homework on that. But
yeah, it's like it's a days long celebration.
Yeah. So the modern is it seems pretty standard to, there's just we want
Is there
one
a
night,
master of banquets?
a master of bank. Well, I mean the caterer. No, it was I mean I'm sure that the Jewish traditions have picked up a lot of things along the way, you know. We did do the chair dance.
Oh,
I can't
nice.
think of what it's called, but I ripped my tux. So
Uh-oh.
oh yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Um,
I digress.
that sounds pretty rowdy. Must have been a great wedding if you're out there ripping tuxes. But yeah, so along the way, Simon has a little conversation with Jesus. He's basically like, well, this must be a pretty important wedding if you're invited, right? Like, like because Simon hasn't yet learned that Jesus hasn't like made his divineness like known to the public yet. So he thinks that there's going to be some powerful people of influence here at this wedding, like that basically Simon is like really chomping at the bits to like get started, to start changing the world, right? Exactly like you alluded to a few minutes ago about like the at least Simon and Andrew thinking that we're about to go change the world like today. Whereas the other students, as we see play throughout the episode, who have been with Jesus for longer than Simon and Andrew, they kind of understand. I don't want to say like fully understand, but kind of understand a little bit like the process that's happening. But yeah, so Simon's just like, like, let's go, man. And Jesus is like, hey, we're just going to a wedding, man, to celebrate a childhood friend's marriage. Like, Don't worry, bro. The tortoise wins the race, my friend.
But I feel like Simon Peters, he's always got to be like that. I mean, throughout his entire time. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe like in his later years, he's like, all right, I finally understand. But like for the most, I mean, dude, he cut somebody's ear off. I mean, I think that's there's a lot of things that's he's just go. And I wonder if I mean, I feel like you put 12 people together, like you need somebody like that. Um, right? Like you need somebody that is
Yeah.
going to be pushy, that pushes people, because if not, I feel like the rest of them be like, all right, let's calculate our Matthew. I mean, he'd be like, all right,
Yeah.
let's
Let's run through
organize
every
every
scenario.
yeah, run through
Pushes
every
his glasses
scenario,
up on his
draw
nose.
50 diagrams. Yeah, exactly. Glasses up. And so like you almost need this. I had a boss that I'd work with, and I actually, one of my friends that knows him listens to this, but so he'll know. Dan will know. No, but we'd go somewhere and like he'd walk up in front of like 50 people, like just cross, hey, and like start like bringing things up to like a cashier or something, and I'm like, it was like got so it's almost uncomfortable because there's like so many people. It's just like oblivious to it. And you're just like, I'm so assertive that I'm going to get exactly where I need to go. And
Yeah.
like, that's Peter, he'll walk into, you feel like you walk into something and just push everyone else aside. But again, I digress.
Yeah.
But no, he has that instant, like, let's go. And Jesus is like, no, like you said, we're going to go
Yeah.
enjoy some food and some dancing.
Yeah. We're about to go party. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't know, a good small example of like sometimes well, like I have an actual example of this that I can get into, but it's like s sometimes you have these ideas or plans or thoughts or
Mhm.
goals or whatever, um, things that you want to accomplish that you know are good and that you know are God given to you. Like God spoke these things to you, God called you to do these things. They are to glorify God, they are to advance the kingdom, right? Um, but sometimes God's timing is a lot different than our own. And I am very much like Simon in my
Mhm.
uh not I wouldn't say all aspects of life, but like with the podcast or like anything kind of like creative. I'm always the person who like starts running before they learn how to walk.
Yeah.
And like I with the podcast I have people like Nick who are there to like hold the leash, you know? But like you said, like you need both parties, right? Because if if he wasn't there holding the leash, I would trip and fall and like smash my face and knock all my teeth out or whatever. But if I wasn't there on the other end of the leash, like he wouldn't might not be moving forward, because I'm
Yeah.
pulling, right? You need the tug of war there. Um, both people are good for the other. But like back to this whole thing, like I had been given an idea for writing worship music. Like I love music. I've guitar here, two guitars behind the monitors up here. Um, if anyone listening from Showboys, they know that music's a big part of my life. Music is a big part of my life. That's how we met.
Mhm.
And I've told you about this idea, but I had been serving in worship ministry for, geez, at this point, probably like it's probably been like 15 years at this point. I started in my like maybe when I was 20, if not like super early 20s. I'm 35 now, so around-ish 15 years. Everything from running sound at church to playing bass to playing electric guitar to playing acoustic guitar to leading services, to then leading, a worship ministry at a church. And within this, I'm just a creative person. I love to write music. I had been in bands outside of church, uh, where we wrote our own music, we played out and stuff. So when I started serving in the worship ministry, of course, like I have the desire to write worship music, authentic worship that has come out of me. I wanted to, you know, introduce to our churches and help lead our people in worship that came out of our community. And God had given me this idea of collaborating, writing worship music with other worship leaders and worship team members from other churches in our area. And I had gotten together with one of my good buddies who went to another church down the road, and we spent probably a year at least writing music and reaching out to other people that we knew who served in the worship ministry at different churches in our county. Got some interest, most of which were people who were like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea," and then you never heard from again. But ultimately, it just ended up being him and I writing for a year, and we wrote a bunch of songs, finished a couple. We were lucky enough to be able to do one at the church we served together at, which was really cool. But ultimately, this idea that I was super enthused about and really felt like God had spoken to me to do, and I felt was important to change the culture of worship in this area. It didn't pan out, and it was a real bummer because I was I know that you've given me this desire for music, this passion for music, and this passion for worshiping you, and I really feel like you were trying to do something here, but it didn't work, and that's starting to morph and change into something else that hopefully I feel will be the actual reason and actual end goal of that initial seed that was planted. But I say all that to say that I can totally relate to Simon in this moment because Jesus called him, told him what he was to do, right? He tells his wife I'm not going to be a fisherman anymore. Instead, I'm going to catch people. I don't even know what that means, but God gave me that idea, that call that he gave Simon. And just like Simon, I was sprinting from the start, all right, we this is what he told me to do. This is how we can do it. These are the things I got to do. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Meanwhile, Jesus is just dude, we're just going to go to a wedding. We're going to hang out. You're going to learn about me and you're going to see some things and that will prepare you for your calling that has yet to come.
Yeah.
So I know that was a 15-minute long ramble, but I don't know. I just really related to that.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, just to follow, I'll do a shorter version of your story, but no, but no, I mean, that's essentially what the Nerdy Bible was for me. I mean, I got the idea 2.5 years ago or something like that. And at that point, if you had asked me if I was going to quit, my PhD program in physics and, go towards seminary, I'd have been shut up, you're crazy. So even at that time though, I felt very called to this, and so I was very like sprinty, and I'm like, like let's get these things going. And 2 years later, like I'm just like I literally made my first like social media post like I don't know, like a month or so ago, like right before our podcast started. I've been prepared, and it's actually in good stark contrast of this episode because we're gonna get into Jesus and like how he's been like it almost clearly shows he's been preparing. And so like that's what's really he's been patiently waiting in the background. And
Mhm.
so like that's how I feel like with my things. Like I wanted to take that sprint because I'm usually that sprint person. And I think I did at times, and then like I'd get discouraged and I'm like, oh, I didn't get too far. And but like where I was when I was sprinting before
Mhm.
is like not even near where I'm at now. And where I'm at now is not even near where I hope to be. I
Yeah.
mean, today is I made the announcement today. Finally a nonprofit, so like an actual nonprofit. So yes, thank you, the golf
Yay.
clap. But no, like I'm very collected. And I'm gonna take a year and think about it. Like that's typically how most things go. But it's yeah. I guess we could get back to this, but like, um, yeah. Simon Peter is rushing, and Jesus is not rushing.
Yes. Yes.
And so they're on their way to the wedding, and yeah.
Yeah. So they get to the wedding. Um, you know, we have a celebration, of course. Like Thomas and Rama are there. They've brought their goods. They, you know, before the party started, they showed the groom's parents, like, here's the wine we brought. Like, it's all the way from this prestigious vineyard. Like, what did they say? It's from the time before Augustus or whatever. Like, telling them how, the age, the vintage. But basically, like, the groom's parents approve of the wine, like they're excited, they like what Thomas and Rama are bringing to the table, um and they start partying, man. They're having a grand old time. Simon and Andrew are getting, acquainted to Mary and John and Thaddeus and little James. Big James, after he jumps out of the fig tree, just kind of like, I don't really see him the rest of the episode.
Yeah,
He's
which helps my confusion.
Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, so they're kind of uh, during the party, the disciples that we have now are just kind of like chilling at a table, talking about how they met Jesus and how he called them. And so far, uh, we know Mary's story, we know Simon and Andrew's story. Uh, it turns out Thaddeus told James, little James, about Jesus, and Thaddeus had worked on a job with Jesus, at least in the show. I don't know the historical and biblical accuracy of this. Um, but in the show, Jesus and Thaddeus had worked on a job, Thaddeus being a stonemason, and of course, Jesus being a carpenter. Um, and during this job, they met, talked, and Jesus called Thaddeus to follow him. I did think this was actually really funny because I watched the episode, of course, like I do every week right before we record, and I was watching with my wife tonight, and they were talking about what they were building, and like, they say that Thaddeus is like, oh, I can't say what we were building in front of, the presence of a woman, and Mary's like, bro, I've seen and heard things that will run your blood to ice or something. And he's like, oh, okay, well, we were building a latrine. And my wife's like, what's that? And I was like, you've never heard of a latrine? And Simon, calls it a privy at one point. It's just like, you've never heard these terms? They're building a toilet. And she's like, oh. It's just, I don't know. I guess I've never had to explain what a latrine was to somebody before. But
Yeah, that's a new one. I mean, I guess I guess you don't know it until you know it, right? I mean, even
yeah,
that of
that's true. That's true.
I mean, the
It's
privy.
pretty obscure, words for a bathroom, basically. Not the most popular. But yeah, well, funny little story. Again, I don't know if that's accurate at all. I doubt it is, but
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm missing. I don't see a lot of like backstory with them. So it's hard to like it's hard to really fully grasp like I feel like they had to take a lot of creative liberties with his disciples.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Unless they have some like cool like secret historical documents, maybe they all had their own like biographies, something we weren't aware of.
The second set of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, yeah. While that's going on, Thomas and Rama, of course, are thrown into a panic because, wouldn't you know, Thomas was right. They ran out of wine, and they were only, I think they were still in the first night of the celebration, which you run out of wine on the first night back then. Oy, I mean, that is humiliating. So, the groom's family is on the brink of total humiliation here, especially with the bride's parents being the kind of like, pompous dorks that they are at the beginning of this episode. Uh,
The pompous dorks.
yeah,
Just
you can you feel free to use that whenever you like. But here we have um Simon and Peter going to refill their wine cups, and as they meet Jesus kind of back by the stock room. I forget exactly what they call it, but where they're keeping all the wine and the foods and stuff. And while they're talking, carrying on, Jesus's mother Mary runs up, in a panic because they ran out of wine. Tells Jesus, and she's like, Jesus, will you please like help us out here? We don't want the family to be humiliated. This would be a disaster. And Jesus says, but my time has not yet come. And this is the reversal of the beginning of the episode here, which I really like. I love it when shows and movies, even songs, but like when they take something from the start of, or it doesn't even have to be the start, but they take something, a scenario, a lyric, whatever, and reuse it later on, and
Mhm.
with a slight twist to it. So here, instead of Mary saying your time has not yet come, Jesus is saying, but my time has not yet come. And Mary says, what Jesus says at the start of the episode, if not now, when? Which I love. That. It's really cool.
Mhm.
And this brought up an interesting conversation between me and my wife, but we can get into that after this. But it's kind of an interesting, like, this had to be a weird, like, just the whole, like, every interaction between Mary and Joseph and Jesus had to have just been so weird for Mary and Joseph, right? Like, knowing who their son is and then like parenting the son of God. Like, that has to be an
Yeah,
interesting situation.
it is. I've thought about that a lot, and I don't know where I've landed fully. I mean, it's like you almost have to have this like not doubt. I can't think of the right word for it, but like how do you it's like when he goes to his hometowns and stuff, and they're like, that's you think this is like that's Jesus, like This
Right,
is
yeah.
Mary,
You
like,
talking
this
about
is
that guy?
that guy.
Jesus?
And so,
What?
like, you get this this perception of what they're like, and there's just too much humanization, to it, that, like, I wonder how many times, like, Mary and Joseph, like, forget that. I guess that's what I'm trying to think of, like, forget, not, like, doubt that he is, because I feel like, I mean, I feel like there's, if you have a child without, doing the things that make you have a child,
Yeah, and
which
like
is what.
a literal angel comes to you and be like, behold, this is the
Yeah,
Son of
and
God.
so that's what scripture, discloses on this, that it's like, if you're in that position and you're just like, okay, well, like, I didn't that's how I made this thing right here, that's Jesus. Like, how do
Yeah.
you
But then
you
on the
don't
flip
doubt
side,
it.
like the story he tells, like traveling to the wedding, like, oh, you mean my friend who, I cracked my head open at his house when we were kids? Like, you have like, yes, this is the Son of God, but also like he's also a clumsy toddler and probably fell over a lot, or like, like those things probably are like, oh yeah, I guess I do have to like parent this guy, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where, like, I think it's easy to forget, like, you get lost in the day to day. Like,
Yeah.
you get I think it's relatable to any of us. I think we all get, for the most part, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I get lost in the day to day, and then I'm like, oh, like, there's actually something bigger. Like, I have my family here, like, not that I forget my family,
No,
but,
no,
like,
yeah.
you get so lost in what the day is, and you forget the depth of the reality around you, and
Mhm.
that's where I feel like it's probably, I don't know. It's just a weird idea. It's just so weird
Yeah.
to think, like, you're just like, I wonder how many, like, small wise jokes that came from it, as growing up, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like early, how it started, like, not now, like,
yeah.
this isn't how, because the way she did it wasn't like a serious, like, now is not your time. It was more of a, like you said,
Yeah,
sarcastic, like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then this is so like in this scene, Mary's asking him and he's like, "No, it's like it's not my time to like make myself public," basically.
Mhm.
And like it looks like he wrestles with his ultimate decision here to like perform this miracle of turning water to wine. So, two things. One, do you think like in this hesitation was it like a struggle to determine if now was his time, or like was he like how should I
Mhm.
do this, or like like what did you think about that? Or
Yeah.
was it just like
No,
a preparation of like getting ready to he's doing his like miracle calisthenic stretches. He's like, all right, gotta go do something. Let me take a little moment here to answer you.
no, that's this is actually something I talked to my wife about before. She's much wiser than I am in this.
Aren't they
No.
all? And not just you, I mean just wives to their
Isn't
husbands.
everyone wiser than you?
Yeah.
No. Um, no, I think he did wrestle with it, because it's like, okay, he recognizes that his time is not here, and that's what he states to her when she's like, hey, we're out of wine. And I think that he's trying to be obedient to his calling,
Mhm.
like there's a time and place, and this isn't it yet. Like, this isn't when I in his eyes, he doesn't feel like I don't want to speak for him, but, like, it almost seems as if he is just like, this isn't when I'm supposed to do this,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like, I don't know, called toward, I don't know. Like, I think he struggled a lot with it, he really did. I mean, you could see it. And I mean, even so, like, I don't think I don't think he, like, disclosed it to anyone. He didn't really this is considered like sign, I think you call it, like the first sign, first miracle or whatever that is like performed, which, even before this, he's saying my time has not come, but here he is like doing something that is, they call it miracle turning. I mean, I think you turn water to wine. It's a pretty, probably a different level of miracle that people would,
Yeah, it's a little
consider,
different
but
than telling someone to throw their net and then, in their minds being like, "Oh, he must have known fish were there," or something. I don't know. It's,
yeah,
like
which actually,
because, like,
if
he's taking one substance and changing it into a
yeah,
completely different one.
he's doing like a very early like chemistry without, you know,
Yeah.
chemicals. Like, um, yeah, no, I think he did struggle. I mean, I think that's what you're getting at. Like, I don't think he wanted to do this. And I mean, he clearly gave like, it's almost like his mother's like, it's like he's being called towards this from his father, which is God. And
Yeah.
then he's being obedient to that. And then he's saying, like, I shouldn't do this. But then his mom is like, hey, I think you should do this. And
Classic 2 parents pitting against
it,
each other. I mean, what are you gonna do?
and he does it. But I think it says like I think he only really had the servants do this, and which is, again, this is the creative liberty of Thomas being one of the servants in the, you know
Yeah.
in the wedding. And so, um which is something I wrestled with for a moment, trying to figure this out, because it almost seems like he doesn't want this and doesn't disclose it, but then the show is like, hey, did you see me do that, like the water, the wine thing, like follow me. And
Yeah.
so it is a creative liberty there that I seen taken. So I didn't know how to feel. How did you think about that? Like,
I didn't even think about that because I was busy wrestling with something that my wife brought up, which was okay, how do I even start this? Okay, so one thing that I wrestle with, and I think a lot of people wrestle with grasping the concept of, is the Trinity and their sameness, yet uh, individualness. I don't really think that's the right word, but okay, so like God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, one and the same, but also three separate things simultaneously, right?
mhm. I mean, that's what I interpret it as, or yeah.
So, with that being said, Jesus is both fully human yet fully God. So, if he's fully God, then how could he wrestle with knowing if this is his time or not? Because he knows all things, right? And it's like the extent of his humanness. Like, was he just fully human in the most natural sense, as in like flesh and bone? He was a human being, but spirit and mind, he was fully God. So that's kind of what me and my wife were talking about, and wrestling with. So I didn't even like. I kind of overlooked the whole miracle to prove to Thomas who Jesus is to convince him to follow him thing. But I think, like, I feel like, man, I don't even know. Like, I feel like he was fully human in all senses of the term, being fully human, but also fully God in the same way. But like in that, like, this is just such a weird concept to grasp, and something that I obviously greatly struggle with talking to our kids about, like that Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit are like all the same, but also like all separate parts. Um, yeah, it's just like I feel like he did. I'm kind of like in your boat where like I feel like he's wrestling with this because he does know when he's supposed to start, right? And this might not be it, but like also I literally have no idea how to get what's in my brain to come out of my mouth in a coherent sentence or thought. So hopefully you can understand what I'm
No,
struggling
I
with.
understand what you're struggling with, and I think I think a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I'm struggling with it as we're talking right now. I mean, it's hard to reconcile two different things that, like God is all knowing. Well, I mean, it's like as soon as you start, I had people post on some of my comments and stuff on. I actually had a lot of like just people post a lot of things, social media, man. But no, like it was just like if your God exists, how many or why did people die in the Holocaust? That type of
Right.
thing. You're just like, that's a pretty deep question, man. Like, like just to make on a Facebook comment, like, hey,
Right.
let's talk about the nature of the question of evil. But no, I think that like they don't reconcile with like how does like it's similar to that. Like if it why would God create something if he knew that evil was going to be a part? You know what I mean? Like it's how did how can he be present in the moment and not understand what's happening in the future? And I
Yeah.
think we see that all the time. And I don't know. And I think they're starting to do a good job at it. And I don't know if they intentionally are doing it. I kind of picked up on it on the they say it's like he says there's 12. Like there was one thing he alluded to, and he's like with Mary, and she was
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
she's
about
like, you
having
didn't have
12
any
brothers.
brothers, and he's like, well, you're gonna have 12.
Yeah.
And like you can interpret that as being okay, like it's Jesus, he knows everything, or God, or he's whatever, like you just said.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but like I think sometimes like he's just incredibly wise. And it's like he's been watching these people in the markets and like it's almost like he knows he's going to call them. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong there, but
Man, if only we had, like,
it's
a friend who was a pastor
yeah.
who could, like, join us
I'm
on
way
an
too early in my
episodes or
that's too much theology for me. But no, not that I don't know it. It's like I haven't, like you said, I feel like there's certain like facts and stuff I could talk, about, and I can go over this. And I'm more at this point educated in science, but like there, there's just stuff that you just have to wrestle with for a long time. I'm like
Yeah.
4 years into my, you're what, like 20, like it's just there's a lot of time that needs to elapse before I can wrestle
Yeah.
with those things.
S
But like,
Any listeners out there, if you have any
yeah,
thoughts
if
or opinions on this, like, please comment and let us know.
no, but
Yeah,
it's
go ahead,
like
finish your thought there.
I guess to contrast it to the future of like, okay, so like, did he know exactly when he was going to die? And I don't know if I mean, I'm sure he did, but I feel like a lot of that is like I could be wrong, but like context clues, like, hey, I'm going to walk into like you know, religious leaders and like announce this thing on their whole like you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things like did he
Like,
know?
he's
Like
very against the grain, so he's probably assuming something bad's gonna happen versus, like, when does he, in his lifetime, gain the all-knowing knowledge
yeah.
of being
And
God, right?
you know what? And people go like
Or was it always there? I don't
y
know. Like, you
no,
know what I mean?
but I feel like if you listen to if people I can feel like if the comments started filling up on this right now, they'd be it just I can't imagine some of the things that you'd see. And it's a
Yeah,
and it I think these are the types of things that I struggle with because like I feel like your reaction is to be like, "Well, duh, he knows it all. It's Jesus." And it's like, are you act like is that an assumption? Or is that like where you I don't know. I struggle with that because I don't know if like we can assume that. I
right.
don't know. And maybe and I think it's deeper. I think there's a lot more thought than goes into it than just like
Yeah,
of course he knows.
right.
Like
And I wanna
I,
say, 1, I'm glad that we're doing this and that we can like one just have these conversations with each other, but I think also like to the listener out there, like I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, James, but this is incredibly vulnerable for me personally to wrestle with this stuff in a very public fashion. Not like we get like thousands and thousands of listens per each episode, but there are going to be people out there that listen to me struggle with some of these
Mhm.
concepts and thoughts and stuff. And maybe some people that I know in real life who I've been serving in the church with for 15 years. Like, and I don't know, it's just like a vulnerable thing to just be like, I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
But it's such a good, it's the best response ever. I
Yeah.
feel like there's so many people that just rant when they don't know.
Yeah.
And, I think it's just so hard to, I mean, I don't know. I feel like right now I'm starting to feel it. I'm like, I got, some of I'm in seminary now, if you haven't picked up on that. And like, dude, it is the exact opposite, I mean, of what I've been going for. And so like I'm so used to like that I'm around people that have been, I don't know, walking with God for like 30 years. My teachers are like, "Yeah, I've been doing this for like 50 years." And I'm like, it's just so hard because I'm starting to recognize like I don't know anything. Like, and I think that's a great place to start. So yeah, you're following this thing called the Nerdy Bible, and the guy that's
And he
founded
just
it. It's like,
literally
hey, I have
admits,
no nothing.
I
No,
have
I mean,
no idea what I'm doing.
you want to sit here and talk about, gravity. Let's talk about it. No,
Yeah.
but and so I I'm loving where I'm at though, because I feel like you have to strip yourself down to the point of like, I don't know this. I have to understand that I don't know it for you to even open up to learn anything. So
Right, right.
I it is a vulnerable spot, and I think that like, you know, I think we're gonna find ourselves there
Quite a
a
bit
lot.
probably.
And I think that it's what you do with what you don't know. Like, I feel like one of my mottos is in the nerdy Bible is to wrestle and is to
Yeah.
wrestle with the things. And and it's really like, okay, so like you don't know something, fine. Like what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna wrestle with it? Are you
Right.
gonna, you know?
Well, and, like, hopefully that's the, uh, I don't know, call to action or whatever.
Mhm,
Like, the point of wrestling is to then cause you to investigate, right?
mhm,
And I think, um, the whole wrestling, air quotes to those who are not watching the video, like is very one of the misconceptions of wrestling within the Christian community and the church is people misconstrue that as like doubt
mhm,
and not like curiosity or like the admitting of lack of understanding. And what that should do, which what this is doing for me and maybe you, and hopefully the listener, is like causing you to think about things that you may not fully grasp or understand, and then pursue the answer to like on your own time. Like put the time in,
mhm,
do research, get in the word, like pray about it, like seek the answers, seek the revelation, right? And it will come. Maybe not in Simon's timing, but maybe more in Jesus's timing in this episode. But um, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. But like, hopefully, that's like, I know that's your goal, and like, I think that's kind of the goal of this series. I
yeah.
would say, outside of like talking about a show that we both like, but is to like wrestle with those concepts and things, and hopefully find answers.
I always say like I think the way you used wrestle in that and like doubt is the same way of like questioning something. And I think like it's funny, like early on in my marriage, I was like, talking about like faith with my wife, and I'm like, we all just need to question everything,
Yeah.
like, and I still believe that, I mean, I think that as a person that's been Christian or following God for 50 years, like, I think you need to question not your faith, but like you need to question why is it that like you should always be questioning that, you know what I mean? Why it's just you should always question everything. And it is because like you don't want to walk around like just saying things to say it, or saying things, repeating things that you've heard. I mean, what does that do? I mean, that's where I feel like we've had this like everyone's a modern scientist, for example. Like everyone understands because they read this article one time that said,
Yeah.
I don't know, fill in the blank. And then now it's repeating it as though they like struggled with the math and like the idea, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying like there's somebody privileged to, you have to go through the math to understand it or talk about it. But the idea is that like everyone becomes a scientist. And it's the same in the faith world, is that everyone comes in and they're like, I read my Bible and I know it said this. So there we go. And now no one's questioning things. And it's almost like taboo to ask any questions. And
Yeah.
that's not healthy.
Yeah.
That was my
Agree.
rant.
No,
So.
I agree. So Jesus heeds to the call of Mary here and decides to help out. So he has the servants fill up these water jugs full to the brim, much to the chagrin of Thomas, who's like, they're not thirsty for water, bro. They are here for the wine, and we are out of it. Jesus is just like, hey, I'm gonna need you to trust me here on this one. He asks him, what do you know, like the significance of him like asking why the jars are made of the stone they're made of? Did you catch that whole thing?
Yeah, I don't. And it's made to never be unclean, as I think he said.
Yeah, like the stone is pure or whatever and won't stain or be
Mhm.
unclean. Do you know, like, I didn't catch the like point of that in this episode, or if it's just like a larger Jesus lesson, that isn't like contained within this episode itself. But he has a cool little explanation of why the jars are made with the stone that they're made of. And with Thomas is doubting and skeptical and is like not catching the vibes Jesus is putting out there about turning this water into wine. Like he has no idea what's going on. After the jugs are filled, Jesus has everyone leave, turns the water into wine, and the party goes on. Not only does it go on, but the master of banquets comes out and he's like, after he tests the wine, he stops the whole party, tells everyone like, hey, it's kind of like the thing that happens at weddings where the hosts will give out the best jug of wine first, and as the celebration goes on and people start to get a little out of their mind, their senses dulled, they'll start serving the lesser wine because the people won't notice the taste of the difference. And he's like, but I'm here to tell you that this is the best wine I've ever tasted, or something like that. And everyone's ecstatic and the party goes on. And while all that's happening, Jesus is basically like, yo, Thomas, you should follow me, bro. And Thomas is like speechless, kind of amazed. And turns out, Thomas is talking to Rama, and he's like, after the celebration wraps up and everyone's leaving, he's kind of like telling her about the conversation with Jesus, and he's like, yeah, Jesus like told me to follow him, to meet him in where do they say Samaria in 12 days, and he's like, I don't know what to think, and Ramus like, do it. Gives him the exact opposite advice as James just got done saying. Well, just don't think. But yes, I think like
I never said take my advice.
no. I think in this context though, like we've all been there where we're like just way overthink the situation, and just spend hours or days or weeks or months or years just in like inner turmoil, just repeating scenarios and just overthinking things until we go crazy, when really it's just as simple as like having that faith, having that trust to answer the call, right? Yeah, what do you think about that whole scenario with Thomas and how that arc kind of wrapped up for the episode?
Yeah, I think at that point, I guess to contrast it with what I was talking about, since it kind of goes with that, is that like he says, I can't pretend I didn't see a miracle. And like, so at that point, like, I don't think you question, like, you need to question it in some capacity, but at that point, it's like he knows what he saw. It's not a matter of question of who he is anymore to him. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's I think the difference. It's like, you know, he's already, there are no more questions for him to ask in this moment. And I mean, there are, but like, it's not a matter of like, is he who he is anymore? Like, there's something
The
deeper
big
about
problem
this.
has
Like,
kind of been solved.
yeah, like I know this is, and that's what I don't mean. Like, and so like, you know, if you've wrestled enough in your life and you know Jesus, then I feel like you don't need to just continue to wrestle the same fight anymore. Like,
Yeah.
wrestle more about who he is. Then, like, you know, so I feel like in that moment, it's not like, yeah, something clicked in his head there, and he's just like, all right, I feel like any doubt to leave at that point is on whether Jesus is Jesus. It's like, does he want to leave what he
Right. What he
has?
knows,
Yeah, what
his
he
comfort,
knows.
his routine, his
Uh-huh.
life. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know, they're just adding another one to the 12 there, hopefully in 12 days. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, that kind of while this is all going on, there is a really cool conversation between Thaddeus and Mary about Thaddeus's trade, right, of masonry, and how, again, this is probably just for the show and probably not accurate historically. But Thaddeus's father was a smith, and he, when he was 9, went and apprenticed with a stonemason, and he was talking about, man, I wish I should start like writing down some of the dialogue, but he's talking about how like Mary asks if a mason's work is more difficult than a smith or whatever, or she makes a statement like, oh yeah, it's probably a little bit harder than smith work or whatever, and he's like, no, but it's a lot more fine, right? And then he goes on to explain how, like, when a smith is, you know, crafting a horseshoe or whatever, if he, you know, makes it and then goes to put it on and it's not right, like, you can melt it back down and reform it, but like, you know, working with stone, when you know, cut it down from the giant chunk of limestone into, you know, whatever you're making, like, it has to be precise because those cuts are permanent. Basically, like, that's like paraphrasing it, but so he
Yeah.
says a lot more eloquent than I just did, but it was really cool.
He says, once you make that first cut into the stone, it can't be undone. And then it's Jesus. While that is happening, Jesus is standing above the water. And I think that's like contrasting to, so I'm actually, as I'm re-going through this, like, I think that's what he was struggling with. I think it was his personal struggle of like, once
we start this,
I can't undo
there's
this.
no going
Like,
back.
there's no going back. Like, I don't think, like, I feel like that Jesus we saw in episode 3, when he's like, laying down on the ground, and he's crafting the wood, and he's just enjoying hanging out with, it's like, I feel like that part of it is gone, and I think that's where, even in that episode, you saw him like crying. And so, like, kind of, tearing up, and he says it sets in motion a series of choices about the stone, and what used to be shapeless now takes form. So, so it's I thought I enjoyed that too. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's so great because it's a perfect description of what is literally happening,
and it'll never be the same.
He made that first cut, like, with that first miracle there, that first wonder of turning water to wine. And that's a great point that you brought up, that like maybe he wasn't struggling with the timing, but more so like being like, maybe it's not even really a struggle at all. Maybe he's just like, like, this is the start. like I guess we're about to do this. Because someone who plays live music, like, I know when the set's about to start, when service is about to start, but every time before I get up on stage, put the guitar on or whatever, stand in front of a mic, I'm just like, oh, we're about to do this. Like, you have that moment. It's not really a struggle or a wrestling, but more of like a deep inhale in anticipation of what's to come. What's going to come. But I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe that's what he was going through there in that moment. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that stone. It's just a great analogy to it. Yeah, interesting.
It's great. Yeah, they did some cool stuff. I love that. Yeah, like you said, the voiceover, as we have Jesus actually doing the turning of water to wine. So now that section of the episode's done, there were a few, and by a few I mean like 2 short scenes of Nicodemus and John the baptizer in the cell, again where we left off in episode 4. And there's some cool dialogue here too. Again, wish I would have wrote this crap down. But basically, Nicodemus is trying to ask John about, he wants to ask him about the miracle that Nicodemus witnessed with Mary's possession into her redemption, right? And because, like we talked about in that episode, he said, basically the only way she is going to be cured of this affliction is by God's work alone, right? No human hands can fix this or whatever. So he's, of course, been wrestling with that whole thing this entire time, and he's here talking to John the baptizer in his cell about this. And what did you think about these 2 scenes here, these conversations between John the baptizer and Nicodemus?
It shows you how much Nicodemus is struggling, because he's like, the first scene where he's going into to help Mary, he's like going into these places, and now he's like going into a prison, that's probably pretty dark and dingy, and and it's like he'll go wherever now because he saw something that he can't unsee, You know, like there's something that happened, and he's like he has to figure it out. And so, man, his story, I forgot how good it is as we move on. But yeah, he's just in search. He's trying to figure out who Jesus is. And you got, John the Baptist, which is, he's got stuff they went over with his teeth. Like they went over it with,
his beard looks so bad. Like,
oh, and he looks insane.
yes.
So, but he's just, I think it's good because he's like, oh, they're finally, he's just showing excitement because he knows that there's public things happening now. And he's like, oh, like I've been rocking around eating locusts and preaching that, that he's coming, and here, it's going to start actually happening. And so, he's just showing excitement and like pure belief.
So at this point, does he know it's Jesus? Because there's a moment where, Nicodemus finally tells him what he saw with Mary. And John's like, this, who did this? And Nicodemus is like, he didn't tell me his name. And basically through the conversation, Nicodemus is like, do you know this man or whatever? And John kind of chuckles and he's basically like, do I know him?
Yeah, I
like, does he know him does he know Jesus is the Messiah at this point? Or like,
I don't know. It's so hard because I don't know whether I think the more that I learn about scripture, I'm like, it's so hard to take, like, you can't just take surface value and say, okay, this is what's chronologically happening. It's just not, I don't feel safe anymore ever making an assumption. I think that's what I'm learning is, but if you look at John 1, it has him being baptized and then calling the first, what is he? Actually, I don't know. Did I miss that up? But, yeah, let me get back to you on that. No, but Wedding of Cana, I don't know when he was baptized.
yeah.
But I'm assuming he knows who he is. I mean, they're cousins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so, oh no, so if you take, oh no. Sorry, I'm like,
no, while you're trying to figure that out, another cool moment here is when Nicodemus is like, so do you think you're the Messiah, basically? And John goes into his little speech of like, when Rome came to, occupy or whatever, like they sent men to like clear the debris and the branches from and make a path for the king, right? Or for whoever to come through. And Nicodemus is like, are you the king or something? He's like, no, I'm here to like clear the way, make a path, right? And I was just like, yeah.
Yes, and he had to have already baptized him because I don't think he got out of prison. I mean, I don't know. Again, another spoiler. I don't know what's spoiler in a 2,000-year-old. Like, I don't know. But regardless, John the Baptist doesn't make it out of this alive. And I don't think.
Wow, spoiler
yeah, I know,
bro.
right?
Come
I'm sorry. Just undo that in your head. But no, but I think if he went into prison, I think he would have already baptized him.
Yeah.
And if scripture tells you that a dove came over, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that he would know who he was at that point.
He has to have at this point in the show because Andrew was talking about being at something of John's and seeing Jesus there.
And that had to have been the I'm wondering if that was the baptism of Jesus.
Yeah. It has to be, right? Because why would Andrew see that guy and be like, "Oh, that's the Messiah," right?
Yeah. What would tell
So
him that?
yeah, so yeah, there's some really cool dialogue between Nicodemus and John here. I highly recommend, if you haven't seen episode 5 yet, when you get to these, first off, if you haven't seen the show yet and you're listening to this episode, what are you doing with your life? But if you're planning on rewatching
Yeah.
after listening to this episode, I would recommend like paying really close attention to these two short scenes with John Nicodemus. Lots of cool dialogue. Too much to remember off the top of my head. But basically, we see Nicodemus like still really, really struggling with what he saw and how it's shaking like his foundations. Again, we both talked about like his storylines through the show is probably our favorite or one of our favorites.
Yep. For things that I will not, what I'm about to like, I'm not about to disclose some of the things that are happening in the show. I will if it's like, you know, the Bible, but there's some cool things that's going to happen with him, and I'm just excited to.
Yeah, for sure.
Very relatable.
But it's like, yeah, like you said, Nicodemus, like a Pharisee of his stature would never be caught in this cell talking to John. Like John even like points that out, and he's like, "Why are you even here?" And he's like, "Well, officially, because you know, if you were to be whatever, like found guilty of these accusations, like it would break precedence for Rome to basically like be in charge of this stuff over a Jew, right? But if you want to know the truth, like I have no idea what the heck I saw, and I really need somebody to like tell me what I saw or like help me hash this out in my brain. And you seem to be the guy who can help me sort some things out, which I thought is, again, for a person like Nicodemus, that takes a lot to put that out there, right, and do that. So, man, his character arc in the show is so cool. But yeah, that's pretty much the episode. So, is there anything you think we missed that we need to talk about?
No, I think that's it.
Sweet.
That's it.
Well, thank you guys. I had to do a little stretch there because, you know, I don't know, man.
We've been at this for an
riled
hour and
up.
a half.
But yeah, so thank you guys so much. And again, like we're talking about, like I'm happy that we have this place where I can like be vulnerable and like hash out these thoughts out loud with a friend, but also to an audience that maybe, hopefully, I mean, hey, if you guys want to let me know what I'm wrong about, or like, you know, maybe you can help provide some clarity, man, feel free to write us, comment. You can join the Showboys Discord. You can write in to the Nerdy Bible on their website. Right? Yeah, they can.
Yeah, I'm actually. I realized my motto is like to create a space, and I'm like, you know, thinking about it this past week, I'm like, you know, I've never actually created a space for anyone to to go. So, so I have a Discord too that I'll be doing a lot of. So I've been creating that, and so I'm always checking out the Showboys stuff. They got a lot of awesome stuff over there.
It's a pop in place, so just be warned,
there's a lot of games and different things that they're going over. I'm gonna probably, I feel like it's hard because I'm creating this Discord, but I'm like, how do you really regulate it? Because people are people, and people are mean, and like that's not like that's always been my fear of like all this is like, how do you prevent that? Like, how do you encourage like healthy discussions and not like, how do you eliminate the bad or the unhealthy ones? So but it's happening. So I got the Discord coming. I'm pretty excited about that. I've been building it. And so that'll be live pretty soon.
Big promoter of Discord in general. Love that platform. But yeah, I just would ask for some grace for us as we wrestle with these things and do this in these episodes. But yeah, make sure you head over to thenerdybible.com. Check out the new Scientist in Faith. I forget exactly what it's titled, but your new blog series.
Yeah. This week, well, actually, in the past week, you would have, or the first one we're doing is James Clerk Maxwell. That's the first scientist. So check it out.
Head over there, give it a read. It's very interesting. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you subscribe. Like James said, head over to our Discord, the Showboys Discord, and in the future, when James gets the Nerdy Bible Discord running, you should jump in there. If you're listening to the audio versions, please like, rate, follow, review, whatever is applicable on the platform of your choice where you consume this content. It really helps these episodes find the algorithm sweet spot. So that would be awesome and very helpful for us. In the meantime, we hope you enjoy your week, and we hope to see you back here next week for episode 6.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful evening.
Later.